All right, joining me today is Julian Erosa, who fights Melquizael Costa at UFC Vegas 106. That fight is on May 17th. So, Julian, I got to start with your last fight, though, because we talked right before. We talked about the durability of Darren Elkins, and
Yeah.
you go out there and you take him out in a round. Give me a little bit of your feelings after that fight, because there is all that talk about his durability.
Yeah, man, it's one of those fights I was anticipating a possible three-round war with. I had a fight like that with Steven Peterson, and I felt like Darren Elkins was going to bring that type of fight to me, which he normally does. But I think the perception of people can kind of get in your head sometimes. And when I went out there, I told myself, he's just another guy. Obviously, he's a tough, durable guy, but so am I, and I have I have good ability to finish people as well. So. I'm gonna go out there and do my thing, and I still feel like I can finish him in the first round, and sure enough, was able to get it done. But I think it's the perception you have of somebody can become reality to yourself, So like if I thought of Darren Elkins as this guy that can tough it out, always have wars and stuff, and that was my perception of him. Maybe the fight would have gone longer, but I just told myself going out there that I can still get a finish, and not to shy away from that just because of his previous fights and go out there and do my thing.
I love that mentality. Now, I got to ask too, because it's a spectacular finish. By the time you got it on the card, it looked like you were the front runner in the shoe in for performance of the night. And then a couple other knockouts show up, a couple other big moments on the card. You kind of get screwed out of it. Were you bummed when it didn't come your way?
I've given my hopes up before on getting bonuses, but now I'm at the kind of the pay scale in the UFC where it's like I just want to get my second check, like that's something that I can guarantee myself by winning the fight. You can never guarantee a 50K bonus. It's nice, but it's just a cherry on top. And sometimes I've risked my winning paycheck with trying to get a bonus. And so, I mean, I did a flying knee against Nate Landwehr, did a Darce choke against Charles Jourdain, did two guillotines in previous fights and didn't get bonuses for them. So, in all four of those fights, I thought I had a good shot at it, but didn't get it. And so, from now on, I stopped giving my hopes up. But I already figured going, pay-per-view 314, so many good fights. There's going to be almost impossible to get a bonus unless you do something really crazy. I thought maybe I might get it, but TKOs aren't as spectacular as knockouts or submissions in my mind. So I was just happy to get my second paycheck and get out there.
I love it. Now I want to talk about something else you got recently because I was looking on your Instagram. Looks like 2 days ago you got your black belt from Casey Halstead. Like, first of all, congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
second of all, tell me a little bit about, like getting your black belt and how much jujitsu means to you. Because I think, a lot of people out there see you as a guy who's a little bit more dangerous with their hands than they are with their jujitsu.
Yeah, I think for me, I wish I should probably use my jujitsu a bit more because I've caught a lot of high level guys in the UFC with my jujitsu. I mean, I caught Ramos and Rodriguez in a guillotine, caught Jourdain and Sean Woodson and Darce choke. So I'm actually very good on the ground. It's not as fun for me. I enjoy slanging it, especially for the I want to be a fan favorite, and they love a little bit of a slugfest. But if the opportunity presents itself, I like to take it to the ground or, take the neck if I can. Um, but yeah, it's been a long journey. I've never been, super crazy about having to get a belt. I didn't need to get a brown belt or a black belt, but Casey Allsted has been wanting to give me my black belt for a while. He gave me my brown belt about a year and a half ago, and he's been wanting to give me my black belt for a while. And so finally I was in there again. And it's been a while. I've been, more focused on MMA. I love jujitsu and I enjoy doing it. But my main focus is MMA, and just like the bonus, getting my black belt is just a cherry on top, and it's nice to have, the accolades and being able to, later down the line, if I want to, coach and teach, at least I have the black belt to that kind of legitimizes me. But I mean, most people in my hometown know that I fight, and they know that I'm good on the ground anyway, so it wouldn't make a big difference if I open a school or not. If I had a black belt or not, if I opened a school. So, but it's nice to have it, and that's obviously one of those things. a big milestone in a lot of people's careers, MMA fighters or just purely jiu-jitsu. So for me to get my black belt, it was just a big milestone. I'm glad I was able to get it done just right after this fight.
And now I want to ask you about something you said in there too, because you said something about, like really wanting to be a fan favorite when you let the hands go and stuff like that. But in terms of the way you prefer to fight, do you like going in there and mixing it up with the hands better? Or have you, sort of taken jujitsu as like a more fun thing to do, but you kind of let it take a backseat so you can be a fan favorite?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. We always have game plans going into fights, but it's quickly does the game plan like to leave when you get punched in the face and I've always been one of those guys that's like I like to dog it out with somebody else, and so and it can be a detriment to my career. I've lost by TKO, a decent amount of times because of that, wanting to, exchange strikes on the feet, but I feel like we have a tool, a tool belt with all these tools in it, and I kind of keep my jujitsu in my back pocket, and I use it when I need to, and I could use it, more often than I should, but uh, like Darren Elkins was a good example of me doing the opposite of that, where like I had him in a front headlock position a couple times, and as much as I wanted to dive on a guillotine or dive on a dark choke, which I love it from the front headlock, I told myself the easiest way to victory would be like a TKO or beating him on the feet because you see so many times that people try to choke Darren Elkins out and just can't do it. And they end up losing, steam and momentum, and then the fight slowly starts to shift in Elkins' favor. And then he comes back and, finishes guys that were beating him up for 2.5 rounds. And so for me, specifically in my mind during the fight, I told myself if those opportunities presented itself early on, not to go for him, just to keep it on the feet and just to kind of anti-wrestle, anti-jujitsu, and just try to beat him up with my strikes.
When obviously it worked and you come out of there pretty much unscathed, which I have to imagine is the reason we're getting this insanely fast turnaround, right? Because this
Yeah,
is, it's happening a month and 2 days after your last fight. You're pretty much right into camp, I assume, right after the victory. What
yeah.
what sort of led you to decide to do such a quick turnaround after such a big win?
Well, yeah, in between, my last fight with Elkins and Christian Rodriguez was 9 months, and then between my Ricardo Ramos fight and Fernando Padilla was 8 months, and both gaps, I wasn't injured. There was nothing going on that would have prevented me from fighting. So I like to be, the most I like to spend in between fights would be 6 months at the most. And so I want to be relatively active. And I put 10 weeks in training camp. I mean, I'm always training pretty hard, but it was a long training camp for Elkins. And after the fight, it was like I quickly wanted that feeling again. And I was like, I felt probably more clear in that fight than I have ever in my entire fighting career. And so I was like, the best thing to do is to parlay it into another fight as fresh as I can keep that memory in the back of my head with the Elkins fight and just try to parlay it into another win. And management said, hey, May 17th, they're looking to fill some fights. Are you interested? And I said, does that Melky kid want to fight? Because that was a kid I was thinking would be a good matchup for me. He's on a 3-fight win streak. I'm on a 3-fight win streak. We both beat C Rod recently. So I was like, that would be a good kid to fight. If he's available, let's do it. If he's not available, then we'll, discuss who the other opponents could possibly be. But he called me a couple days later and said, oh, we got Melky. So let's do it 17th. And I was like, let's fucking go.
I love that. I love that. Now, I got to ask too, you mentioned liking him because he was on a win streak, because he had beaten one of the same opponents. Did you like it stylistically as well? Like, what do you like about the fact of fighting Melquizael Costa?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like it's nice that we had fought the same guy, so you can take, lessons from that previous fight of his. I mean, his last fight was C Rod, and my fight two fights ago was C Rod. So I finished C Rod in the first round. He went to a split decision with C Rod. I feel like he made a lot of mistakes in that fight. So I think it's going to be up to him to be able to correct those mistakes if he faces me. And so I don't think I made really any mistakes against C Rod, but I think he did. And so I think it's gonna be the burden's gonna be on him to adjust and not on me. So I'm, physically and more importantly, mentally as prepared as I possibly can be to fight him. So if he doesn't come with his A game, I think I'm gonna be able to take advantage of him. I think he's relatively decent all around. And those are the guys I like to fight because I think I'm also relatively good all around, but I think I'm just a little bit above him in all aspects of fighting.
I like that. Now, I want to ask you quickly about training camp too before we get your prediction here. And that's, being only 4 weeks removed from your last fight or so, obviously your training camp had to look different. So how different did it look, and what sort of did you have to cut back in order to get ready for this one?
Honestly, it was kind of just it almost felt like an add-on. Like it almost felt like it almost felt like the Darren Elkins fight didn't happen, and then I'm just still in a long ass fight camp. So I'm actually like it's a short turnaround, but honestly, for me, it was like I'm just done with. I want to be done with training camp. I just want to go fight again. Like I wish it was this weekend, kind of, you know. So, and I really didn't adjust much. You know, obviously he's a different type of fighter than Elkins, but I'm at the point in my career where, I'm a veteran. I've been doing this for a long time. So the more important thing than finding specific opponent or specific training partners to emulate my opponent is to be able just to adjust on the fly. So it doesn't matter. I could, spar a million different southpaws because he's a southpaw that could spam the left kick a bunch. They could show me as good as they can a look like Melky Costa, but I can get in there and he could still be different from all those training partners. So for me to be able just to adjust on the fly is more important to me. So it doesn't really matter. I can, even the last 10-week camp that I was getting ready for Elkins, will pay its dividends into this fight because even though I was going against, shorter wrestler, orthodox guys more than I was tricky southpaws like Melky is. It's the ability to adjust, and so I don't necessarily specific or make my camp specific to certain partners to go with. I just go with everybody in the gym that I always go with, and that way I can just adjust on the fly.
I love it. Now we're going to get a chance to see the fruits of those labors. It's May 17th. You know how I like to end these things. Give me the prediction. How we seeing this one going down?
I really feel like I'm gonna dart choke this guy. I would love to get a first round darts just because, if I get a first round finish, I'll be tied with Derek Brunson with the most consecutive first round finishes in the UFC, which is four. Also, another dart choke would be three dart chokes in the UFC. I'd be behind Vicente Luque that has four. And then it'd be my fifth submission as a featherweight, which would be one behind. I can't remember who has it, but it's like I think six is the submissions in featherweight. So there's not very many records that I could beat, but those are the ones that could be a possibility. So, not only do I want to be a fan favorite, but I want to be a record holder. I mean, I think that's what we all aspire to be, and show those performances and just build out our legacy. So, first round darts is what I'm hoping for, but maybe not first round, but I do think I'm going to dart choke this guy.
All right. Well, you're here to hear first, folks. This has been Julian Erosa, who fights Melquizael Costa. That's at UFC Vegas 106, and it's on May 17th. Julian, thank you so much for the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me on.